Bet you can't guess what this is. Did you guess? Do you know? This is granite. And you wouldn't expect to see that on my channel because I'm not a big fan of granite. But here it is in my shop and I'm going to do something with it. So this past summer, my brother-in-law and sister-in-law, who are named John and Nancy, which is a little confusing because my wife's name is Nancy also, but this is a different Nancy. Anyhow, they ride motorcycles and they went to Sturgis, South Dakota. They went like, I think, a week before the rally, so they weren't there with everybody else. And as part of their trip, they went to the Crazy Horse Monument and they took a tour and they went up to the top where they were doing the work and they were told they could take as much rock with them as they wanted to. I figure the guys up there are probably very happy when people haul rock down for them so they don't have to haul it down themselves. So John picked up, I think he said like 25 pounds of this, and I think he was planning to bring it to me, and I said, I don't want 25 pounds, I'll take a rock or two. And so he brought me these two. So I'm planning to make something for his wife, and I'm not sure exactly what. It'll be some sort of jewelry. She rides an Indian motorcycle, so I looked at the Indian logo, and it's like a head of a chief. And then I looked at the Crazy Horse Monument, and I thought, well, maybe I could do the horse's head, maybe I can do the Indian riding on the horse. I don't think any of that's going to turn out too well. I might try it, but I just don't have high hopes for that looking like much when it's just the silhouette. And I'm not talented enough to carve the whole thing out, so the best I can do is a silhouette. So those are my first ideas. I will definitely do a pendant for her, or a couple pendants maybe. And then we'll see what else happens. So first thing I need to do is slice this. So it's already slabbed from where they got it. They're cutting it off with rock saws up there, and it's too thick to make jewelry out of, so I need to cut it down a little bit. So what I'm going to do is take a chunk of 2x4 and glue it on the backs of these, and that'll give me something to clamp in my saw, so then the blade can go through here. So this is too narrow to clamp it, and then still get a couple of cuts off of it. Before that, though, this distance here is a little too big to fit in my saw. I have a 10-inch saw and it only gives me about 3.5 inches of actual cutting surface on the blade. And this is a little bit too big, so I'll probably stick it in the saw like this, cut off a little bit here, do the same thing with this one, clamp it in here and cut off a little here. Then I'll glue my 2x4s on and slice it up from there. So that's what I'm going to do first. When I'm done with that, I'll show you where we're going next. I ended up cutting each of these in half because they were really too long to go through my saw. I also took a little bit off the top like I said I was going to, and they should fit fine now. I have my slabs all cut now, and I think they vary in quality. All this black stuff's probably going to be really soft. Let's just test it with a knife. Careful I don't cut myself. Yeah, I can easily scratch that with a knife. So I think that's probably mica. I'm not 100% sure about that, but I just know that black and granite undercuts really bad. It wears away faster than the other rock, or the other minerals, I should say. So I'm going to take the nicest piece, which is probably this one. It doesn't have a lot of black on either side. I'm probably going to try to cut right in this area here and make a pendant from that spot. And then these two slabs are probably my next best slabs. I'm going to try to make refrigerator magnets is what I decided. I don't know if this is a good idea or if this is going to work well, but here's the Indian motorcycle logo. And without having the interior part of the picture, if it's just a silhouette, I don't know that it's going to look that good. So I printed them out along with the Harley Davidson logo because that's what my brother-in-law drives. I decided these two sizes were going to be the best. I did a variety of sizes. So that might just look like a weird blob when I get done with it, but that's all I can do, so that's what I'm going to try. If it turns out, it turns out. If it doesn't, it doesn't. This one's pretty recognizable, even though it doesn't have the words on the inside. So I'm going to trace those onto these rocks, and what I did is I used cardstock once I figured out the right size, and I just used an X-Acto knife and I cut these out. So now I can put these on here and kind of figure out the best place, trace it out, and then cut it. Well, after doing this, I don't know if I'll be successful doing the Indian logo because it's really chippy. Just little pieces are breaking off all over the place. So somehow I managed this one. So that's good. And try the other one, see how it goes. Hey, here's where we're at. I decided not to film this one because when I film it, I have to have a camera in between me and the saw, and this is going to take all my attention. Plus, I think it gets kind of boring watching that. So it went pretty well. I did have one feather chip along here somewhere. I think it was that one. So I had to grind it down a little bit just to get rid of the chip. But the rest of it didn't chip. Kind of a miracle. I still have to do the polishing, so I'm going to polish just the front face. Normally I would just throw this in the tumbler and all the edges and the back and everything would get polished. What wouldn't get polished in the tumbler is between the feathers. That's not why I'm not tumbling it. I just don't think this would ever survive the tumbler. Between chipping and undercutting, it just wouldn't go well. So I'm going to leave the edges rough. I'm going to try to polish the front without chipping anything, and I'm going to call it good. So I did a couple of pendants. This is the first one I did, and I oftentimes just do two just because it's just easy to do two. It doesn't take a whole lot longer, and then if something goes wrong, I've got a backup. Here's the second one, and something went wrong. Big chip came right out of there. I could see there was a crack along here. I knew that going into it, but I just didn't have a better spot on the rock to work. So that'll go in the trash. And this one, I still need to grind down the edges. Normally I do groove wraps where I put a groove around the edge and then there's a wire that goes in the groove. I don't see any way how this is going to survive having a groove with a real thin little piece of rock on the back side of the groove. So instead of doing that, I think I'm going to buy some glue-on bales. So you can buy a little thing that just glues on the back and it has a hook on the top so you have something to hang it from. I don't tend to like those too much. They just look a little bit cheap to me. But I don't think there's any other way to do this one. So that's what I plan to do. It'll be a miracle if I get through the cabbing, let alone doing the grooves. So I'm going to just try it that way and see what happens. Typically when you make a cab, you start on the 80 grit wheel and you work all the way down to the 3000 grit wheel. But in this case, since this stuff chips so bad, I think I'm going to start actually on the 600 grit wheel. The 80 grit down here is the most likely to chip. These are hard wheels. They're very, very hard. These have a soft backing, so they're squishy. So a little less likely to chip. Since my saw cuts pretty smoothly, you can see it's not too bad. I think I might be able to get away with this one. If not, I'll go back and do this one. For this one, I'm going to have to grind a lot more, so I'm going to try starting on the second wheel here, and if that doesn't work, I'll go back to the first wheel, but I'm pretty sure I can do it all here and just try to minimize the chance that anything chips. Okay, now that I got both these shined up and they turned out really well and I didn't have any chipping, I'm getting more confident about doing the dome on this. So that probably just means that I'm about ready for disappointment. But here goes, let's give it a try. I just dried this off so you could kind of see how it looks right now. These last three wheels are just going to shine it up. The shaping is done. And I gotta say, I've got a bad attitude about granite, but this is coming along very, very nicely. Still going to have a bad attitude about granite though. Well, I am pleasantly surprised with how this has turned out. Just can't believe that this turned out as nice as it has. So now I just gotta get a bail and glue it on the back. I do have to polish the back a little bit too, but that's a quick job. So just about done. I have everything finished up. So here's the pendant, which actually turned out a lot nicer than I thought it was going to. I actually don't mind that bail at all. I like it. So I think Nancy will like that. And then you might be wondering why I'm standing in front of the refrigerator. Well, if you remember, I made fridge magnets. So there's the Harley one. And I put 2 magnets on the backs of each of these because they're a little bit big. So let's see if it works. Hey, it does. Here's the Indian. And it's 2 magnets. And I kind of thought that one was going to stick also. So if you want to see other videos, I have one linked here where I made beads for my wife's Pandora bracelet. I think you'll like that one, so click on that and I'll see you over there.